All right, Cyber Traders, good morning and welcome on back here to a brand new day, brand new week here live inside the Cyber Group Trading Room. Great to see Kathleen, Phil, Mike, Egan, Ray. I mean it. Great to see everybody here this morning back on webcam. Let me get that up for social media, Facebook Live and YouTube. Great to see everybody there as well. It's been a little interesting past week and a half, going to be an even more interesting week ahead personally for myself. I'm currently located in Largo, Florida. Pretty much basically where the eye of Hurricane Ian is going to look to go through. So that should be pretty interesting. I ended up just attending a wedding. I was up in New York and visiting family. I was going to a wedding from the end of last week. So my home office here has been a mess up until I ended up returning, had the weekend to get everything back up and running. But it's not about me though, folks. It's about you, Michael, Ray, Mario, Phil, who all did pretty nicely here on the LVTX trade, at least early this morning in pre-market. All right, things were really slow early prior to 8 a.m. So thankfully, this not only led to a pop, but led to an actual move, like a tradable move here on this stock, where we ended up seeing it bounce really nicely off of 425. It was holding underneath 550 here for a little while. 540, 550, both were pretty strong. And recently here, prior to the meeting beginning, it ended up making a nice pop. And off the pop, that's where a few of us like Phil and Mario and John ended up getting out on their trades. Hey, right now, this thing is really flat here, right? Starting to weaken, flatten under 6. Is it possible it moves up higher? Perhaps even before the open, it's possible, but I'd be more interested in seeing what happens out of this stock now after the opening bell, after the market opens up. So the news out on this LVTX, personally, I've been saying LIVX this whole morning to myself. LVTX, let's see what the news is on this trade really briefly, if I may. I posted earlier inside the trading room here, so I'm just trying to pull it back up right now for all of us. All right, so LVTA shares trading higher after the company and another company, Sagan, announced an exclusive license agreement in which Sagan will work to develop and manufacture their drug. This company, LVTX, will receive $50 million up front and up to roughly $650 million in potential milestones and royalties. So that's a really interesting headline. Led to a big pop up, thankfully, and hopefully there's more to it on this trade. The one thing I'll comment on otherwise is that this stock has been playing off historical levels really well throughout this pre-market. The two lines that you see here at 425 and at 550 were directly taken off from like the daily, weekly, historical charts for that matter. So that being right over here, we're essentially bottomed out right from 422, 425, over the past year, beginning from the beginning of this year all the way through. And then just once it broke that price, as it continued to move up, 550, the last major bottom that we had from 2020, from September, October of last year, that was holding really well at that point. So that should be a resistance. Well, it broke above both. Most recently, this one here again. So where's next? Where's the next big level on this stock? Well, if we look at the daily chart really briefly, let me try and blow this up. The next line I was looking at, I wrote this inside the chat board as a call out. Roughly around 662, 663, roughly around there. Held it really well as resistance, really well as support, as resistance again off a false break. So that is where I would expect to find our next major historical level. Now, with that, though, you could always find an iceberg order popping up within a moment's notice. So you always need to be mindful of what pops out there on level 3 and level 4 here. So, right now, LVTX definitely looks good coming off of seemingly good news. LVTX, still early in the morning for me. All right, we ended up doing well on a couple of trades from last week, not just from Friday last week, but really from Thursday and Friday. So I want to bring this up because, hey, the markets are down once again this morning. You saw UVXY on the gainers list again, but that doesn't mean that you can't follow stocks coming off of news, stocks that were strong at one point throughout the morning. Obviously, we just went over the LVTX, right? So, really quickly on SAVA, SAVA, a stock that one of our students in particular, Chuck, has been doing really well on. Well, really from midway last week, this thing started to explode. I think this was Thursday, where this ended up making a huge pop and run from 30 up to nearly 35 at the time. Then heading into the close, the last part of the day, that's the next best time to try and follow trades actively. Ended up leading to a higher high, and this is exactly what we strive for here at 3 o'clock, at 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon. Well, ended up leading to another squeeze up a couple of days later. So actually, that was back on Wednesday of this past week. This was Friday, where this ended up making a huge pop and rally again. Went from 38 to over 50, topped off underneath 52 at the time. Got a lot shakier and more rugged of a trade, especially on a Friday. And after this pop here and the run it made from Wednesday, once the volume dies off, it's going to get a lot harder of a trade, a lot choppier of a trade more often than not. So thankfully it gave us more, but that doesn't mean it's going to be as easy. So, hey, Saba ended up making like a nice move early from last week. At this point now, it's just going to be on our side list. It's trading about nearly 50,000 shares in pre-market. No real activity to it in pre-market here, folks. So, hey, for right now, we'll see what else is out there. But that was just one from last week that we did really well on. Another couple, if I have the chance to go through it, I think this was really from Friday last week, the LITM trade. And just another cheapie coming off news early in pre-market. So, once we ended up seeing the markets open, so a big flush and everything drop off. Thankfully, this went against the grain and ended up leading to a nice pop and rally. Again, got pretty choppy later on around that famous 10:30, 10:45 reversal time, as we like to talk about in class. So with that, it ended up actually pushing up more, but again, just wasn't really worth it. We had called it out looking for more, but once the volume dies off again, if it's not going to make that big explosion like Savit did, then you got to realize that it's more likely than not just not worth it. So ended up just chopping around sideways into the afternoon on Friday, that is, now down big. So, hey, what makes the top percent gainers list one day makes the percent losers list the next. We didn't trade this stock. I'm just going to be the first to say it. I mean, I'm the first one to tell you folks to avoid crap like this. G-Sun, it was extremely illiquid. Hey, it went up from 30 up to 100. God bless if anyone literally took this trade as a gamble, but look at where it's at today. Look at where it's at from Friday afternoon. So, this thing ended up completely tanking. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that trade. Hey, the same thing is to be said on a more liquid trade like LITM. Look at where it's at this morning. It's down over 18% here this morning. So, moral here is just that, or the lesson to be learned is that, hey, what makes the percent gainers list one day often makes the percent losers list the next. If it's not the next day, it's the day after. It's not a literal guarantee where it's the next day, but you don't want to swing trade these stocks, folks. That's really it, right? We look to day trade. We look to get in and out. If you feel like you get out of a day trade too early, that's something that we could work on the side. If you have coaching sessions, a Traders Talk is tomorrow, right, for all of us here inside the trading room. Obviously, we're doing the phase 2 and 3 classes this week. Little heads up, because I think our web team made a small little mistake over the weekend, and one of my students, James, ended up telling me about it. So really quick, folks, today, coming up at 10:30 Eastern Time, we are continuing the Phase 2 stock course. That was a reschedule from the end of last week. So Phase 2, we're going to be concluding and finishing up today, this morning and afternoon. But tomorrow morning, we go right back at it. We got to keep on schedule here. But Fausto has the Phase 3 class tomorrow morning, right? So that's the advanced class. That's where you get to see a 30-year plus pro like Fausto trade the live markets at the market open, market close. So that will be tomorrow, Tuesday, and then also Wednesday this week. A lot of class this week, folks. So I know that Fausto looks forward to it. I had a tag in for him early this morning, but obviously he'll be back later on today and then tomorrow, of course. But, hey, I look forward to the Phase 2 class later on this morning as well. So a lot to talk about here, folks. Let's go from top to bottom right now. The LVTX stock is already on our list. Hopefully that makes the re-break above $6 later on. We got a bunch of cheapies here on the top of the gainers list. I told you, otherwise, aside from LVTX and the ISPC from earlier, ended up making a nice pop, but we ended up trading this back from Friday last week. It was a continued move, essentially. Ended up leading to a nice little pop and rally heading into the close, but to be honest, it was off of lower volume. So it did move up a little bit higher in the after hours, going into the weekend that was, and pushed up early this morning in pre-market. But look at where it's at now. So obviously hasn't offered us a whole lot since 8 o'clock. I'm sure news came out on the stock, folks. I want to be efficient with time here. Otherwise, right now we're going to put this on our watch list. It's going to be slim pickings here heading into the open. So ISPC will make the cut for right now. I would watch out for 250. $2.50, not just because it's a 50-cent level. I mean, that's just one reason, but it held underneath it pretty well here prior to 7:30, led to a good breakout. You'd expect resistance to be support. It did hold it for a moment, but then really broke below it pretty quick. So let's see if this could break back above 250 coming up, but otherwise 251, that's why I'm bringing this up, 250, 251 is the VWAP this morning, right now at least, here on this ISPC. So that really should be resistance, a strong level for the market open here. All right, what else we got here, folks? MLCO, some funky business going on in China, if I'm not mistaken. I'd never like to talk out of pocket. I hate talking about politics anyway, but there is some rumor, and that's all it is right now, I'm led to believe, but I think that the Chinese president is under house arrest. That's the latest that I read. Not only that, but actual news coming out within China, like not just rumor stuff, but actual news. I believe that Macau is going to be easing their COVID-19 travel restrictions earlier than anticipated. So that will affect different gaming and entertainment stocks. MLCO is a resorts and entertainment company. So they were very active early this morning in pre-market. Bit of a gap up, it's trading a lot of volume so far, but this is an ugly move, right? So it obviously has not treated us as well as a pre-market stock, but for after the market opens, hopefully there's a lot more life left to this trade. Should it break over 6? Was this the one? I think this was the one early in pre-market, or maybe it was the other one. We'll jump to in a bit if I see it. But there was a stock this morning that had like a 250,000 share iceberg on the bid. If it wasn't this, then it was the one I didn't put on the actual pre-market list. I think it was like CH something. But MLCO, I'll put on our watch list here for the morning. Just trading a lot of volume. It's up big. It's hard for us to ignore this stock, but obviously I wish this was trending literally any better than it is right now. If this could trend a fraction better than what it's doing right now, I'd be that much more interested. But, like I said, it's going to be slim pickings here heading into the open. Michael says LVS2. I saw that early. It wasn't trading as much volume prior to 8 o'clock, but now it is. So I do want to look at, is that Las Vegas Sands, LVS? So we'll take a look at that in a moment. ATCO, trading a lot of volume here. I didn't see this up until now. Big pop. It's really flat here. I got to check the news on this stock because if it's a buyout, then we're just going to skip over it. Oh, it is. It's a buyout. There we go. That's how you know, folks. We came off the news class in the Phase 1 stock course last week and was saying that buyouts just don't move once they're made official. So trading higher after so-and-so acquisition company, like one of those SPAC companies, special purpose acquisitions, increased its acquisition offer for the company from $14.45 per share to $15.50 per share. So it led to a big gap up. It's really flat right now. So yeah, for the meantime here, not too interested in this ATCO. All right, a lot of talking today. Got to get my water in. Let's see what else we got here. Otherwise, folks, got 10. We ended up seeing the stock last week make a funky move. Big drop from Friday, the end of last week. Gapped up this morning. It's trading some good volume, but not too interested in it. I skipped over LVS. Let me jump to LVS here. Yeah, same thing on this as it was on like MLCO. I mean, Las Vegas Sands, obviously, but do they have a tie to Macau or MLCO in particular? Obviously, company's name is Las Vegas Sands, but I'd be interested in knowing if there is a specific tie between LVS and Macau or LVS and MLCO in particular. But really active this morning, up over 6.5%. At least this one we're a little bit more familiar with. After the market opens, I would really hope to see the order book fill in, for this stock. So I don't mind slipping this on our list, but I like the first 3 more. If this thing has a really good spread, really good liquidity on the order book on level 3 and level 4, then I'll be more interested for sure. But the first 3 I do like a little bit more beforehand. All right. Obviously, with the markets down, you had UVXY, UVIX, those ETFs that follow the VIX index. They're up. So we'll take a look at those at last. We'll slip them on our list if they look good. XPEV, hey, another Chinese stock, ended up making a big move early this morning in pre-market, but since it's trending well, it's trending pretty nicely, at least given circumstances. Made a little bounce at first, higher, low, led to a little pop here off resistance off of 1420, 1422. Hey, I knew I had a tag in this morning for Fausto. And, the reason I bring this up is because in terms of preparation, we talked about this from the beginning of phase 2 last week. We'll talk about it today, actually, this morning. But in terms of preparation, I don't have as much time to do my normal prep work. I took the time to prep and chart 2 stocks, the LVTX and not NEO. I was thinking about NEO, but this looks a lot more active. It's up more percentage-wise so far. The XPEV. So I knew 1420 and 1422 in particular was a big level based off of level 4, based off of Bookmap. Let me bring that up here briefly for this trade. Just a moment ago before the meeting started, I, of course, had called out inside the chat board this big 140,000+ share iceberg at 1480. But just earlier, we ended up seeing 2 separate orders getting filled at 1420. And then it looks like the same person moved their order up to 1422. And simply put, once it broke under that level, that should be treated as resistance. And it was for a little while. But it can only take so long at this kind of poking at it, stabbing at it. Between that and the VWAP in purple led to a big snap and pop. So, that should look to be support coming up after the market opens, but it looks really strong either way here, the XPEV. So, just be on the lookout for that next iceberg resistance at 1480, the 141,000 share order. But right now, XPEV, I'll definitely put on our list. Being the sucker I am for NEO, obviously I'll take a look at NEO here pretty quickly. It's only up 1%, right? XPEV looking stronger, but hey, the Chinese EV stocks were moving pretty well from the beginning of last week. Ended up having a huge drop off though back on Wednesday, right? NEO at least did. Then on Thursday, LI had a lot of activity coming off of news of its own. So, these EV companies have all been pretty interesting over the last week, with XPEV up right now. I don't mind slipping NEO on our main list. It's trending up really well. It's trending a lot of volume. It's going to be tradable in terms of liquidity. So obviously I'm a sucker for NEO, but I even prepped up XPEV, and not this though, at least here heading into the open. So, honestly, that's where my focus more will be. But for anyone that does well on NEO that would prefer to follow it, it's looking pretty strong here, at least in pre-market now. All right. Let's see. Let's hop over to the loser's side here coming up. I mean, we'll look at UVXY in a moment. Got cold. Natural gas ETF, up big. Let me look at that very briefly here while I'm at it. So it's up over 5%, now making a good bounce from roughly around 1675, 1680. Bounced up pretty nicely back up to the VWAP right around there. So, it's hard to ignore this cold ETF again. If you do very well on cold or have done very well over the last week, then you should definitely look to follow it. But if you're new, if you're unfamiliar with how this ETF trades, I would rather you follow any one of the stocks, XPEV, ISPC, like any of these other stocks, publicly traded companies, over an ETF. It's really hard to apply level 3, at least, on an ETF or ETN. If you have level 4, it is doable, but you got to test the waters and train yourself on how to actually use it in order to trade an ETF. So it will come with time, but that's where I say, if you're someone in our room that has been doing well on this, definitely this looks pretty strong for right now. I will say also on cold, because I did chart this back on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. On this, there isn't really much historical resistance. There wasn't from Friday, where it was trading right around like 15-ish, 1550, and like this peak here back from August. So that's right around 1650 right now. It broke above that early. Right now, this looks really strong. Now that it broke above that, your next historical level, maybe not up until like 19-ish, 20. I just saw a moment ago, like 17, let's see, 1747, 1763. It's kind of dancing around there currently. So currently holding on underneath those prices, but even off a false breakout here, just be on the lookout here for this to shake back down shortly around from those prices, 1750, 1760-ish. All right, we'll look at UVXY here to wrap up at the end, but let's hop over to the loser side right now. TEL is down big. It is shortable, but it's like really slow now. The cheaper it gets, the slower it becomes. And at this point, it's not going to be as good of a short, in my opinion, at least. If I'm wrong with that, I'll have a little egg in my face. But normally, the less expensive a stock gets, the slower it becomes. So back from last week when this initially broke down, it was a pretty good short. But the more and more it drops off, you wonder not only when is it going to bounce back up, but is it just not going to be worth it after a certain point? It's going to be really slow moving. The more time you spend watching this like flatten out, you're going to miss opportunity elsewhere. All right, what else we got here, folks? Another stock we are familiar with, not exactly as close to the ground floor, but Blue. This stock has been all over the map the last week and a half. I say that in a good way, but off of like good news, this thing was on the gainers side one morning, and then it was on near the top of the losers list at the end of the day. So it throws you for a loop with the moves that it makes, but it's really tradable, very liquid. It is down big this morning. It is shortable. It's hard to ignore this one again. I've been saying that quite a bit, but same to be said here, at least, right off the lows, Blue. I would expect big support off of $5. I don't think it's tested 5 since August even as resistance. So, that should be a pretty interesting setup to say the least, when this comes down to test 5 in the morning. All right, let's see what else we got here, folks, to wrap up from the losers list here. Now we're dipping into below 5%. So if there's anything else that looks really good that you folks would want me to look at here, just let me know. LVS I did put on our main list here at this point for right now. Let me jump to my Benzinga scan here really briefly. I was going to say I thought there was a few stocks moving right now, but those are stocks that are just up percentage-wise. They're not really moving right now at this time. All right, folks, that's just about it. That's all I got. Last call here for all of us on social media, all of us on Facebook Live, YouTube, and, of course, for all of us inside the live trading room. Let me know if there's anything else. Hopefully I don't get blown away in this hurricane over the next 2 days. I mean that. Used to snowstorms more often than hurricanes. So CSCW, that was the one, Andre. I think that was the one, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, I got to go back and then take a look at the chat board. Oh, no, it wasn't. I got to go back and take a look at the chat board. We're not going to finish this meeting now until I actually find that for you folks. There was a stock early this morning that had a huge iceberg order. So really quickly, I want to bring that up. Okay, let me see here. I think I have it. There we go. CRHC. That was the one. All right, this is, I guess it's a buyout. I didn't even care to check the news at the time. It was really flat for a while, so I had no interest on this trade up until we ended up seeing this guy pop up on the bid. A 250,000 share iceberg nearly that popped up at 991, but the stock's done nothing since. So, you see it on the gainers list, but it's not really looking that great right now. That's all. All right, folks. So for right now, we have a decent list here heading into the open, at least in my opinion. I feel pretty good about it. The ISPC, LVTX, XPEV, and NEO, and actually Blue. Blue looks pretty good. I like that one. So as a short. But, aside from that, though, folks, for all of us inside the live trading room, later on throughout the morning, not right now, but later on throughout the morning, Rich will post the link for the Phase 2 course coming up at 10:30 Eastern Time, a new class that I'm teaching coming up at 10:30 Eastern. I really look forward to it. I had to restructure the curriculum, a couple of new updates in it, and I had to make a couple of new classes to fill the spaces, fill the void, and this morning is one of them, a really interesting scenario-based class. Funny title, at least in my opinion. Out of the hole, back on the horse. In terms of losing confidence and being down in the dumps, how do you get back up on the horse? How do you gain that confidence as an active trader? It's a lot of strategy-based topics that we'll be discussing, but I'll give you my experience. It's a lot more of a critical group discussion-based class with a lot of our experienced students giving their insights as well. So that'll be at 10:30 Eastern Time later on this morning. I look forward to it. For all of us on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, if you have any questions, feel more than free to send over a quick email whenever I do the afternoon meetings and whenever I tag in for Fausto in the morning. I always like to post my email here at the end of these streams, josh@ctutrading.com. Again, any questions that you may have about about our meetings, about what we do, our education, anything on top, feel more than free to send over via email. If you're interested in joining our live trading room, that is, just go right down to the link on the blue banner below the stream to get yourself started. But for all of us otherwise, going to refill up the old water bottle here. It's just about 9:25, so about 5 minutes to go prior to the market open. I look forward to it, folks. Talk to you soon.
Become a Cyber Group member today. Just click the link below and receive all these amazing products and a world of knowledge for just $9. Do it today.